Welcome back. Well, the Human Rights Commission now releasing a final report based on findings after a group of residents complained about several councils in North West and how they had failed to provide proper water and allowed sewage to flow through their streets. In some cases, it seems sewage basically flowed out of their toilets. Imagine pulling the chain and things go the wrong way. Well, findings were made against the Ngaka Modiri Molema District Municipality and the Tswaing local municipality. Shirley Mlombo is the provincial manager for the South African Human Rights Commission in North West. Shirley, good afternoon to you. What findings have you made against these councils? How have they failed residents?
Okay. The findings we've made is that the two municipalities violated residents' right of access to water and the right to basic sanitation as well as the right to human dignity.
You're ordering them to fix all of these problems, to provide proper water, to deal with the sewage problems. Do you believe they have the capacity to actually do that?
It's for them to make representations in that regard. But what I can confirm is that there are chronic and systemic capacity challenges within municipalities in the Northwest, which result in the systemic failures to provide basic services to residents. And you don't have to go further to, unpack those challenges. Reports from the Auditor General year after year point to systemic challenges that require redress not only in these municipalities were cited in this particular report, but many other municipalities. And those challenges is not only poor financial management, leadership challenges in municipalities in the Northwest is a challenge. You start an investigation and you find that by the time you are done with the investigation, you've been through 3 or 4 municipal managers, and by the time you issue the report, you find that even those people you were engaging with during the investigative process are no longer, leading those municipalities. So really, those issues will need to be addressed if municipalities in the Northwest are to provide basic services to residents.
So many things happen here. If they don't have the capacity to actually comply with your orders, do you have the power to enforce, to manage the enforcement of it? And you say it's up to them to come to you and say, we can't do it. And the Human Rights Commission has important powers in this regard. But if they can't do it, they can't do it. And we know in North West so often councils can't do it.
Yes, we have many options available to us, and the first option would be to engage with the municipalities involved, and then they will indicate to us what they can do and what they cannot do. And then we also have annual engagements with the provincial executive where we raise some of the issues. And in terms of the law, as you may be aware, provincial executives have a constitutional obligation to ensure that municipalities comply with their constitutional duty. And if the provincial executive cannot provide the assistance, the national government has a constitutional obligation to ensure that provincial governments work to ensure that local government works. So we will be engaging with all the stakeholders, including the legislature, to ensure that the recommendations are complied with. But of course, if all else fail, then the only recourse available to us is to approach the court of law for relief. But as you know, even court orders are not complied with in South Africa. But we have to explore and exhaust all the avenues available to us before we say we've done all we can and there's nothing that can be done to assist the residents of Achisanang, the residents of Lesotho, the residents of Delareyville, standing off, as well as Yagsgraf.
The thing is, Shirley, I think it was Cyril Ramaphosa who said in 2018 that basically governance had failed in North West when it came to councils. You point to the Auditor General reports correctly because it's an independent finding, and the independent findings on councils in North West have been so damning. In the investigations you do, is it the same problem again and again? I know each council, like each family, is unhappy in its own way. They each have their own problems. But in the end, doesn't it all boil down to governance?
It does. It does, Stephen. It's the same issues. I was looking at our complaint stats for last year sometime yesterday and found that the majority of complaints that we're receiving are the same as sewer and it's water. So it's systemic and it's not limited to these municipalities. And for these issues to address, there has to be that intervention at a systemic level. That's why as a commission, we are conscious of that, and that's why we've made it a point that annually and on a continual basis, we also engage with the provincial executive because they have a role to fix governance in the province. We cannot fix governance. It is the provincial executive and the premier in particular that has to ensure that governance is fixed. And if he cannot fix it, then national government has to once again step in the Northwest as it done in previous years to ensure that governance issues are addressed. So, but we are trying our best, even in engaging with Treasury, to see how do we work together with all these institutions to address the core of the issue, which is failure in governance.
Shirley, I don't live in Northwest. I live in Joburg. We sometimes have our own problems when it comes to mayors. But everyone who lives in Northwest, every person that I hear when I speak to people on this program tells me that it's basically all just falling apart. And that there doesn't seem to be any hope to fix it. I mean, from what you're saying, people are right to believe that.
Yeah, you know what, my philosophy, Stephen, as long as there's life, there's hope. So especially as a Chapter 9 body, we can't just raise our hands in the air to say the situation is hopeless. As indicated, we are trying to engage with anyone and everyone we can engage with. Even the Northwest University, we've started engaging them on what role really they can play as an institution of higher learning to try and assist in strengthening governance in the Northwest. So on our side, as long as we have this mandate, we have to try, and we cannot lift our hands in the air and say the situation is hopeless. But you are correct, it's not work that we can do alone as the South African Human Rights Commission. We have to continue to work with other Chapter 9 bodies. Residents as well, they need to provide the assistance required, because ultimately it's residents that must hold these leaders to account. Every year there's an opportunity for residents to elect leaders who can bring about the change that they require in their community.
Shirley Mlombo, thank you. Provincial Manager of the South African Human Rights Commission in Northwest. Do appreciate the time.